So the important thing is that I'm going to make available to you a tutor for this class, so that if you're struggling with any particular concepts, you can contact him and have any extra lessons that he will organize. Some of you had lessons with him last semester, so you'll be familiar with him. But the most important thing about this class is that if you encounter any problems at any time, we try to sort them out and make sure that you understand them, because every week a new concept is coming into play. And if you don't understand the concept from the previous week, it's going to have a knock-on effect throughout the semester. So if you're struggling, please make sure that you speak to me so that I can assist you. All right, and you can speak to me through WhatsApp or on email. I'm happy to receive your messages through that. Also, during our classes, when we have live classes, please feel free to ask questions at any time. Just put up your hand. If we are on Zoom, just put up your hand. If you go down to the little reactions icon at the bottom of the page, you click on that, you'll find that there is an icon for raising your hand, as Mfundo has done now. Do you want to ask a question, Mfundo? If you do, just unmute yourself so that I can hear you.
Mistakes. So
that's all right. Okay, let's test if everybody can find the icon that says reactions and then press raise your hand. So see if you can find that and then say raise your hand so that I can see if you can all do that. You're getting there? Now, to lower your hand. So once you've asked your question, go back to reactions and you'll see that where the little icon was for raising your hand, you can lower your hand. So if you can now lower your hands, that would be great. Good. Alternatively, if you are struggling to get the raise your hand thing to go up, just unmute yourself and ask a question. Okay. All right, I'm going to share a screen with you now. I want to take a brief look at the outline of this course so that you are familiar with what we're going to be doing and where to access everything that you need. All right, so I'm going to share the Moodle page with you now. Just tell me when you can see the Moodle page. Good. Okay, so you can see it now. At the very top of the Moodle page, you'll find what our aims are for this semester. And if you are to scroll through that, you'll see that we have a lot of aims. Okay. There are 4 major aims that are broken up into smaller sections. So the 4 main aims I'm going to go through now: to refine existing oral competencies in order to begin discerning and commenting on music which is heard. So last semester, you did a lot of clapping exercises and you did singing exercises. We're going to continue with that now to refine your oral skills some more. Okay. Our second aim is to develop staff notation skills. There are a number of things which we're going to deal with related to that. The third one is to develop techniques for applying the knowledge that you are learning for oral and theory into live performance. So that's, again, clapping, short things at sight, which we'll get to towards the end of the semester, and then also singing intervals and things like that. Okay, so we'll progressively get to that. And the fourth aim is to develop techniques for applying theoretical and oral skills to musical transcription. And we started doing a little bit of that last semester. Okay, so we'll continue with that this semester. So if we click on the expectations, you'll see that I am expecting of you at least 3 to 4 hours outside of class time per week to work on music fundamentals. That's basically an hour every day, except on the day that you have your class. So on Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, I'm expecting that you will put in at least an hour. You will probably need a little bit more than that to keep up, but that is the minimum for which I am expecting. Okay. Now, the assessment due dates are going to be variable. And the reason for this is we are never quite sure how COVID is going to impact our semester. So I haven't set proper dates for these yet. They are going to be the same kind of assessment tasks that you did last semester, where I have a window period between 10 and 12 on a particular day, and you write the assessment and then submit it at 12 o'clock. Except the last one, COVID rules permitting, will be a live one where you come into campus and write for 3 hours. Okay, so just keep that in mind, but the dates will be variable and I will give you more than enough time in preparation for those. Okay, and then the module textbook, which you will need for the worksheets, but also for revision. So everything that we do every week is in the textbook as well. So if you are somebody who learns through watching, the videos will be helpful and the classes will be helpful. But if you are somebody who learns through reading, then the module textbook will be very, very helpful. And for those of you who also want to revise and strengthen your knowledge, the textbook is helpful to come back to. So let's just have a look at that so that I can go through it with you very briefly. So for example, today we're going to be dealing with the conventions of more complex rhythms, and your reading for today is from page 3. So that page all the way through to page 7. Okay, so to where it starts with more conventions for noting. Okay, so that's what we are going to be dealing with in class today. And if you want to revise by reading, you can find that. Then if you scroll all the way through to the end of the book, you'll find the worksheets. Okay, some of you have already asked me, where are the worksheets? They start on page 44. So there's worksheet 1. That's the one that you're going to be working on for this week. Okay, that's how the textbook works. Then every week you also will have an oral exercise or 2 oral exercises. Okay, so for this week, you have a clapping exercise and a singing exercise, and that you're going to be dealing with through recording, as you did last semester, a voice note for the clapping and for the singing. We'll look a little bit at that if we have time later on in the class today, and you'll see that for most weeks, there's something for you to do. See, week 2, week 3, week 4, and there'll be transcriptions and things like that. Okay, so that's where you find the oral exercises for each week. Then the work that we are going to do is listed for each week. So today, week 1, we're looking at time signatures, anacrusis, and syncopation. It shows you where in the textbook we're at and which worksheet and oral exercise to look at, and then there is a video for you to watch of what the content is. Okay, so every week has one of those, so you can see along here. At the end of the semester, if we scroll down right to the end, you'll find that it says revision of cadences and trial final assessment. That trial final assessment is in your textbook, and it's like a revision of everything. It will look like what your final assessment will look like. And so it'll give you an idea of how to prepare. Okay. The semester is 13 weeks, and I'm giving a window period of 2 weeks towards the end for the final assessment and for any corrections that need to be made to those final assessments. And also if COVID by any chance disturbs our teaching pattern. So I've just got a little bit of a grace period there for us if we need it, okay, or if we don't get through all of the material on time. Okay, so that is the Moodle page. Can you show now by putting a thumbs up using that to reactions if you've been able to access the Moodle page for this course already and taken a look at it? So just put a thumbs up if you've had a look at the Moodle page. Good. Okay. You don't need to take the thumbs up down. It'll go off on its own. So that's great. Thanks. Okay. So now let's get to, before we carry on, are there any questions that you want to ask? Kanyesile, do you want to ask a question? Just remember to unmute yourself if you want to ask the question. No questions? Okay. I'm going to share a screen with you now, which is a PowerPoint presentation. Sorry, I'm just trying to get it out. Just tell me by a thumbs up if you can see it, please. Good. All right, so we're going to start this semester looking at rhythm again. We did a lot on rhythm last semester by grouping notes, clapping, by working out how long notes were. Now we're going to look at some slightly more complex ideas around time signatures. But first, let's just revise what we did last semester very briefly. So we learned 6 different time signatures last semester: 2/4, 3/4, 4/4, 6/8, 9/8, 12/8. And we learned that there are basically 2 different systems of time. There's simple time and there is compound time. Simple time, the pulse divides into 2. In compound time, the pulse divides into 3. Okay, so if we look at the table over there, simple duple, 2/4 time, the pulses are crotchets, and those crotchets divide into 2 quavers each. Compound duple, on the other hand, the pulse is a dotted crotchet, and the dotted crotchet divides into 3 quavers. Both of them have 2 pulses in the bar, but the simple one divides into 2, the compound one divides into 3. And the same is true of 3/4 and 9/8 and 4/4 and 12/8, as the little table shows you. Okay. Now we're going to look at some different types of time signatures. So take a look at the ones on the screen now. You'll see 2/2, 3/2, and 4/2. Who can remember what the bottom number tells us in a time signature? If you know the answer, just unmute yourself and tell me.
Tell us how many pulses.
It tells us what the pulse is, okay? What pulse we are dealing with. So when we were dealing with 4/4, for example, the bottom 4 told us that we were dealing with crotchets, okay?
Yes.
We were dealing with 6/8. The bottom number 8 told us that we were dealing with quavers, okay? Now, I explained this last semester, but I'll just remind you that you use the bottom number and you divide, you have, let me start that all over again. Use the number 4, okay? And then you divide 4 by the bottom number of the time signature, and that will tell you which note value you are using. So if you've got 4 and you're dealing with 4/4 time, you take the 4 divided by 4 is equal to 1. Okay, a crotchet is worth 1 beat, correct? Okay, so that
Yes.
we're dealing with crotchets. If we have an 8 at the bottom, we say 4 divided by 8 is equal to a half. Which note is equal to a half?
Semi.
Sure? Semiquaver?
A quaver.
A quaver. So then we know that we're dealing with quavers. So if we say 4 divided by 2 for 2/2, what note value are we dealing with as the pulse?
Minim.
A minim, correct. Okay, so when we're looking at these ones, 2/2, 3/2, 4/2, we're dealing with numbers of minims. So 2/2 means that there are 2 minims in a bar. 3/2 means that there are 3 minims in the bar. And 4/2 means that there are 4 minims in the bar. Okay. So here's what we've just been speaking to. The bottom number of the time signature always tells us what the pulses are. And they fit into a semiclave, which is worth 4. So the bottom number, if the bottom number is 2, you say 4 divided by 2, it equals 2, and that tells us that's a minimum. Okay. The same is true if you had a 16 at the bottom of a time signature, you'd say 4 divided by 16, and 4 divided by 16 is equal to 1/4. Okay. Just in case you're not very clued up on doing that in your mind, don't worry. It's worth 1/4. Which note value is 1/4?
A semiquaver.
A semiquaver. So if you had a 16 at the bottom, it would indicate that you're dealing with semiquavers. Okay, does that make sense to everyone?
Yes.
Okay. So now let's have a look at these time signatures when they're written out. So you'll see at the top there, 2/2, and I've put 2 minims in a bar, okay? A minim is worth 2 beats. So 2 plus 2 is equal to 4. The whole bar is equal to 4. 3/2, there are 3 minims. 2 plus 2 plus 2 is equal to 6. And 4/2, 4 minims, 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 is equal to 8. So one whole bar of 4/2 would be equal to 8. Now, for those of you who are very switched on and wide awake, you may be thinking, we learned about a time signature 4/4. And in 4/4, one whole bar was equal to 4 beats. Correct? 4 crotchet beats. You with me? 4/4 has 4 crotchet beats in it. But 2/2 has 2 minim beats in it, and each of those minim beats is equal to 2. So 2 plus 2 is also equal to 4. So 4/4 and 2/2 seem to be exactly the same thing. What is the difference between the two? And the answer there is that the difference is very, very subtle. I'll try and explain to you what that difference is. 4/4 time is usually used for moderate tempo music or slower music. Okay, so we're looking at things like at this kind of pace. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's a kind of moderate pace or very slow. 1, 2, 3, 4. And in the case where we're using 4/4, the composer usually wants you to be able to hear 4 separate beats. Okay. Now let me show you what 2/2 actually is. 2/2 is usually used for very fast tempos, quick tempos, okay, where the composer only wants 2 pulses to be heard. Okay. So if we were going to go like this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Now there are 2 pulses, ba, 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 dita, 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 4 beats, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. But the pulse, 1, 2, 1, 2, is quite fast, okay? And if we were to write that out as 4/4, it would give us the idea that we wanted to hear each of those crotchets individually, whereas actually we want to hear 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so for 4/4 moderate and slower tempos, But Tutu is where you specifically want to hear 2 pulses rather than 4. Okay. Any questions so far?
No, sir.
Now, just a point of just noting something. 4/4 and 2/4 use exactly the same conventions of grouping of notes. So if you get a question in a test or an assessment which says, identify what the time signature of this thing is, and the whole bar is equal to 4 beats, it could be 4/4 or 2/2. You could put either of those answers and they would be correct. The only way you'd be able to tell the difference is if you were actually listening to the music, and if it was fast, you would know that it was 2/2, and if it was moderate or slow, you'd be able to say it's 4/4. But since these written assessments don't have a hearing component with them, if you wrote 2/2, that would be correct, or if you wrote 4/4, that would also be correct. Okay. Now, these 2 time signatures have abbreviations which are used quite often, and some of you may have already seen this. So for 4/4, quite often what you see is just a C on its own. The C stands for common, and the reason that we call it common time is because 4/4 time is used a lot in music, so it's common. All right. So if you see a C at the beginning of the piece instead of a time signature, it stands for 4/4. Okay, common time. If you see a C with a line through it, that's called cut common, which is the same as 2/2. Okay, so those are 2 abbreviations that are used fairly frequently, and you might have already come across them. They're on the screen at the moment, so you can see what they look like. Now let's have a look at another new time signature, 3/8. Now before, when we've dealt with time signatures that have an 8 at the bottom, they have been compound time, 6/8, 9/8, 12/8. Okay, those are all compound time signatures. But 3/8 can act as simple or compound, depending on the context. So in a slow tempo, where the composer wants you to be able to hear 3 separate beats like this, or 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. It said the time signature was 3/8 at this very slow tempo. That would be considered simple time because you can hear each of the beats separately. But if it was a very fast tempo like this, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. There you see, if you watch my hand, I'm giving 1 pulse at a time. Up, yep, yep, yep. That's compound time because 1 pulse has been divided into 3. So it depends on the context whether it is compound or simple. If it's fast, it's going to be compound. If it's slow, it's going to be simple. Whichever way the music is written in terms of speed, 3/8 is always grouped like other compound times. So if there are 3 quavers in a bar, they are all beamed together. So if you look at the bottom of the page over here, you'll see that the 3 quavers are grouped together, and 1 whole bar is equal to 1.5 pulses. Okay. Then we are going to learn some more compound time signatures. And they're easy because they function in exactly the same way as the other compound time signatures which we've learned. So we've learned 6/8, 9/8, and 12/8. But you can also get 6/4, 9/4, and 12/4. So any of those which divide, you remember that we said that if the top number can divide by 3, it's usually compound. So 6 divided by 3 is 2, 9 divided by 3 is 3, 12 divided by 3 is 4. you'll remember when we learned about compound time signatures, we learned that the pulse divides into 3. And in those time signatures, the pulse was a dotted crotchet. Now we're dealing with a different pulse. So the bottom number, who can tell me if we've got a bottom number 4, what are we dealing with in terms of pulses? Which type of note?
Crotchets.
Crotchets, correct. Okay, so that would indicate that if it's 6/4 time, we're dealing with 6 crotchets in a bar. If it's 9/4 time, we're dealing with 9 crotchets in the bar. But because these are compound times, they're going to be grouped in groups of 3 crotchets. So in 6/8, there will be 2 groups of 3 crotchets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Just like in 6/8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The pulses here are not dotted crotchets, but dotted minims. Okay, do you remember what a dotted minim looks like? It's the open note with a stem on it and a dot next to it. Okay, so the pulse 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The clicks that I'm giving are dotted minims. Dotted minims. The individual beats 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 are crotchets. Okay, so it works in exactly the same way as 6/8, 9/8, and 12/8. It's just a proportion of them. So a bar of 6/4 would equal to 6, and a bar of 9/4 would be equal to 9. Now, there is another category of time signatures that we deal with. Okay, we've learned about simple and compound, but there's also one called irregular. And that deals with a whole lot of different time signatures where there isn't a clear distinction between groupings of 3 or 2, or they're not regular at least. Okay, so the commonest ones are 5/4 and 7/4, or 5/8 and 7/8. Okay, and let's just have a look at these more carefully so that you can understand what I mean where there isn't a regular pulse. If you think about the number 5, you can't divide it equally without getting a fraction. So if you divide 5 by 2, you get 2.5, correct? So they're not whole numbers. Okay, whenever that happens in music, we get something called irregularity, where we have to get them into whole numbers. So 5 can divide into 3 plus 2 or 2 plus 3. Okay, take a look at the screen now, and you'll see that I have written 5/4 out as 2 pulses. One pulse divides into 2, and one pulse divides into 3. They're irregular because it's not the same all the way through. One is worth 2 and one is worth 3. One is bigger than the other. Okay, that's why it's irregular. So if you look at the first one, I've got a minim and then a dotted minim. So if we were counting like that, it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's where the accents would be, on 1 and 3. But if we look at the second one, where we've got a dotted minim and then a minim, then it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There, the accents would be on 1 and 4. Do you see how I've grouped them? I put a circle around them so you can see that they're groups of 2 or 3. And it can be 2 first or 3 first. Okay. If we were conducting this, showing a choir or an orchestra or a group of musicians, the first one would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't think you can really see that on the screen now. But if you look at the video that is up on Moodle, you'll see how I conduct it, and you'll see how it shows where the accents are on 1 and 3 or on 1 and 4. Okay. Same is true for 7/4. If we divided 7 by 2, you would get 3.5. Okay. And if you divided it by 3, who knows what 7 divided by 3 is? Anybody know? It's 2 1/3.